The Endangered exhibition, which opened on November 12th, really tells the story of a few endangered species and the role that humans had in contributing to the endangerment and extinction of some of these species. It includes a space where we display artwork and specimen that depicts some of these species, and we tell the story of how they became endangered or extinct and the role that human played in that process. And we also show a video that describes more in detail what those behavior are that we have today that are affecting animals all around the planet. And then at the end of the video, we encourage people to take a pledge and choose to pledge to behave in a different way to help reverse this process or help some species. Accompanying the exhibition is also this immersive experience that is inspired by the art of John James Audubon. He was an artist and ornithologist who lived in the 19th century, and he's known for creating these beautiful prints of the birds of America. And what we did is that we took this print, high-resolution scans of these prints, and we animated them and created these three beautiful environments where these birds once would have lived. Some of these birds are still here today. Some of the birds are threatened and some of them are extinct. So people can walk into this beautiful world that no longer exists and get a sense of what it was like in the 19th century and reflect upon how their behavior has contributed to destroy this world while still engaging and appreciating the beauty of it. We started about a year ago. So it takes about a year from the initial concepts of what do we want to do, what stories do we want to tell. Then there's a long time that is spent picking the objects from our collection. We have a huge collection of thousands of objects, so we really need to pick the objects that are the best to tell the story that we want to tell. We also knew that we had a collection of the Audubon Birds of America, and we wanted to connect this story, but we wanted to do it in a way that it was more than just reading a piece of text on the wall, but making people experience what it feels like to see a world that we have contributed to destroy, and that would help them become more aware of how we behave today and how we can change that behavior. And so the idea of this immersive experience came to sort of light, and then we worked with a company that had developed similar experiences in other museums, and we developed original content for this experience. The process of the creation of the Birds of America is very fascinating in the sense that Audubon himself was very, very involved. He was literally going out. He was obsessed by birds. He was going out and spending weeks and weeks out in nature. He was observing birds, taking notes. He would kill them to observe them more closely, and he would paint them very quickly, usually watercolors. And then once he created this number of watercolors, which were created out in the wild, really, he would send them to get turned into prints, and he collaborated with a printmaking company in the UK. So this was kind of an international project. And really, it was important for him that the first edition, it's first now, but it was the only edition when he first conceived it, these birds would be represented as much as possible to scale. So the size of the first prints was really, really big. It's called the Elephant Folio, and it was a very expensive project. There are 437 plates. So imagine what it took to create. There was a whole workshop that was working on this in London, and he was going back and forth. His sons were involved in this project. The quality of what was produced was very, very high, and it was sold to mostly aristocrats and royals throughout Europe that we really sort of were fascinated by the beauty of these birds, many of which are in the United States, so they would have never seen them before. And then this first sort of version was a success, and he sort of thought, how can I sort of capitalize on this in a way, but also make other people access this information, because his contribution is not just the birds, the plates and themselves, but also the notes that he wrote and he took. And so he decided to work on a smaller version, a smaller edition, which is what we have here at the museum, that was sort of much easier to sell, and it was more affordable. He actually made multiple versions of this size. He used different techniques to reproduce the prints. This one is pretty good technique that sort of is very, very close to the original, while later on he produced different versions that maybe have less value because he used different printmaking technique. But that's how more or less the world sort of came to know the birds of America. And that's why every single museum that I've worked in the United States has a collection of Audubon's plates or the books themselves. So more information has come to light recently about sort of the tinted legacy, if we want to call it, of John James Audubon. He was very much a man of the 19th century. He owned slaves at a certain point, and he worked with them as well as free people, both African American and Native America, on the creation of this book, because he would use slaves as well as free men to help go and capture these birds, bring them back to him. Some of them were involved in the creation of the backgrounds, for instance, of these where the birds are set. And so he often worked with them, but he never acknowledged them. And he really, we find out, he also had pretty racist and white supremacist view. So more of this has now come to light, and it was a very big dilemma for us. We wanted to tell this story. We thought that it was important to use Audubon to tell the story of endangered species, but how do we reckon ourselves with this situation? So we had a conversation within the team. We involved various players within the museums, and a decision was made that yes, we wanted to move forward with developing this experience and showcasing the book, but we wanted to acknowledge this reality. So we do so in the text that accompanies the book, and we're also working on creating a virtual program in the winter of 2022 that will explain these issues with experts that are sort of more aware and knowledgeable about this story and what's happening now, because a few organizations around the US are abandoning the word Audubon to their name, like it's kind of eliminated from their names. So we want to kind of acknowledge this process that's happening, and we want to help tell this story as well. We worked with a company to develop a video that is available within the exhibition that really showcased the different behaviors that humans have, from not closing the faucets when they're brushing their teeth to not using recyclable bags when they go and buy groceries, that are really affecting specific species, because we really want people to think that their own behavior can be changed. And so we have this beautiful video which is made up of animations that resonate with adults and kids that kind of tell this story. We also present some information, statistical information, that really help bring the message across. When you think that like 6,000 gallons of water are used every year by family just by brushing their teeth, you kind of feel like that's a lot of water. And at the end of this video, we really wanted to create a participatory experience and really make people think at a personal level. And so we present a QR code that people can scan that will take them to a website where they can make a pledge. We give them the option of making one of 9 pledges. They can take the pledges again if they want to, and then they pledge to do one behavior that will help them to save a specific animal. They can learn more about that animal, and then they can see how other people pledged, so they can feel sort of how their behavior reflects what the general trend in terms of what people are willing to do in their daily life and they're willing to sacrifice for the environment.